From Wilmington, Delaware, Senator Chris Coons, a Democrat on the Foreign Relations Committee. And just to continue on Iran for a moment, Senator, thank you for your time. You've said the nuclear deal is not a perfect deal, but you see what Iran has been doing, and you hear what the senator just listed off here. What's wrong with putting pressure on Berlin and Brussels and Paris?
Well, Bill, I agree with Secretary Pompeo and Senator Blunt that a lot of Iran's behavior outside the nuclear deal in recent years has been alarming and compels us to take action. What I had wished the president had done is to recognize the benefits we've gotten from the Iran nuclear deal in constraining their nuclear program and getting us searching inspections of Iran's nuclear activities, and work more closely with our European allies, with the Germans, the French, the British, to reach a second deal, a bigger deal that would rein in their ballistic missile program, their human rights violations, and their support for terrorism. I completely agree that Iran is a bad regime that threatens our allies and conducts itself in ways that are unacceptable. I just disagree about whether causing greater distance with our European allies by sanctioning them and some of their biggest companies is the right path forward.
Perhaps you could change minds. Yes or no, Senator, on that?
Well, I hope that we will see President Trump end up proving himself to be a deal maker, not a deal breaker. But in this instance, I've heard from the ambassadors of our key European allies that they're concerned that America first is turning into America alone, and that whether it's in the path towards this Singapore summit with North Korea, where our South Korean close ally was not consulted before the announcement was made, or it's in the path forward towards trying to restrain Iran's behavior and Russia's behavior, that the close relationship we used to enjoy with Germany and France and the United Kingdom is fraying a bit.
Well, all these stories intersect, as you just indicated there, too. On North Korea now, Mike Pompeo said this on Thursday.
I think the American team's fully prepared. I think we're rocking. I think we're ready. I think we're prepared for this meeting. I think President Trump's prepared for this meeting. We were fully engaged over the past weeks to prepare for this meeting.
Well, you know, this is not easy stuff, and Kim has since taken a different tune of sorts. Do you think this summit can be put back together, Senator?
I think it's possible to have a constructive and positive summit, and I certainly prefer President Trump's choice now of diplomacy over threatening fire and fury, and I commend him and Secretary Pompeo for gaining the release of 3 Americans held in North Korea, and recently another American released from Venezuela, and I certainly hope that he is successful. But I would caution that if we go ahead without using every ounce of leverage we have over China, we're making a mistake. I was really struck that President Trump this past week was tweeting that he was going to work with Xi Jinping to release some of the pressure on ZTE. Let me explain how these two connect. North Korea critically relies on China. If we don't have China putting maximum pressure on North Korea, I don't think this summit will succeed. ZTE is one of China's biggest telecom companies. They have repeatedly and intentionally violated our sanctions against North Korea and Iran. And the Department of Commerce just imposed powerful sanctions against ZTE, blocking them from getting U.S. material for 6 years. This is a moment where President Trump has China's attention and should use it to extract concessions both on North Korea and on China's ongoing theft of our inventions and innovations.
But you
I
would
hope
agree,
President Trump will show himself able to do that.
You would agree, though, with the Chinese cooperation thus far, with James Mattis pressure and the pressure from this president, we would not even be talking about a summit had all 3 of those things not come together, correct?
That's correct. It is a significant concession to North Korea to offer a summit. They've never had an opportunity to meet with an American president. It's something they've long wanted, to elevate them to an equal to the United States. And it's important that North Korea has given up a number of American prisoners as a confidence-building measure. Yep. But let's be clear. Twice before, North Korea, under Kim Jong-un's father, committed to full denuclearization in 6-party talks in 2005 and 2007, as Senator Blunt just referenced, only to then change their tune. So we're going to have to be very focused, very engaged. I am hopeful that Secretary Pompeo will brief and engage Congress, and I'm hopeful that we'll work together to make sure that this summit is a success.
2 more questions quickly. If the president's correct, should the FBI have an informant connected with any national campaign, Democrat, Republican, or otherwise, Senator?
A critical role that the FBI provides is counterintelligence. And when they began getting evidence that the Russians were engaged in a broad campaign to try and influence the 2016 election, I think it was appropriate for them to use a confidential informant to investigate what the Russians were up to. I'm struck that Rudy Giuliani continues to talk about 13 Democrats in a rigged investigation, as he just did on this show. Let me remind you, Robert Mueller, Rod Rosenstein, Chris Wray, this is the special counsel, the FBI director, the deputy attorney general, all lifelong Republicans. Robert Mueller, the special counsel, a decorated Marine combat veteran, someone who's been unanimously confirmed by the Senate for senior law enforcement positions under both Republican and Democratic positions. To continue to undermine the credibility of the FBI and the Department of Justice in this way does not serve the interests of law enforcement or the rule of law.
Yeah, I apologize for the interruption. I'm trying to squeeze in one more question. His point is that President Trump should have been told about it. What's wrong with that?
Because President Trump and his actions in the campaign are potentially the focus of an investigation into obstruction of justice and collusion. I don't think it would have been appropriate for there to be the revelation of investigatory information to President Trump or his personal lawyers, particularly classified information about a human intelligence source in advance of there being any decision about whether to move forward with any final conclusion by the Mueller investigation.
Well, final point here. In a week where Jared Kushner was given his permanent security clearance returned to him, you are calling for Donald Trump Jr. to come back to your committee and testify. You believe he's lying. That is a strong charge. Well, about what, Senator?
I'm concerned that in reviewing the transcript of Donald Trump Jr.'s questioning by a staff of the Senate Judiciary Committee, that there's a clear tension between his firm answers that there was no efforts by a foreign power to provide assistance to the Trump campaign and recent reporting that there were meetings that he participated in where representatives of Gulf states were offering some assistance to the Trump campaign. I do think that's worth our questioning Donald Trump Jr. again in front of the Judiciary Committee. And it's my hope that on a bipartisan basis we'll continue these investigations. As Senator Blunt just said, it is in everyone's interest for these investigations to continue without interference.
Senator Coons, thank you for being here today, especially on this Memorial Day weekend. Thank you. In a moment here, we'll bring in our Sunday group to talk about the state of that North Korean summit and the new terms for that Iran